Welcome, you're watching Vox News, your daily news updates with Rita Kamkumo. Our headlines today: Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni makes a triumphant return to the capital city after his disputed win in last week's elections. The World Health Organization plans to deliver 600 million COVID-19 vaccine doses in Africa by the end of the year. French movie star Omar Si recounts his recent visit to Senegal, the land of his ancestors. Our top story today: Uganda's longtime ruler Yoweri Museveni on Thursday returned to the capital Kampala from his home village of Kiruhura after his disputed victory in last week's elections. Cheerful crowds greeted the 76-year-old president as he drove back to the capital city following his controversial re-election for a sixth term, extending his 34 years in power. Meanwhile, opposition presidential candidate Bobi Wine is still under house arrest 8 days after he went out to vote in the January 14th elections. The 38-year-old, who is considered the real victor of the election by his camp, officially finished second last week, maintained on Thursday that the election was rigged and denounced his continued illegal confinement, he said, by Ugandan authorities. A day after the UK-Africa Investment Conference, during which it highlighted its desire for the United Kingdom to become Africa's business partner of choice, the British government sent its Foreign Secretary on a business trip to Sudan. Britain's Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab on Thursday announced a substantial financial aid to the African country at a press conference in Khartoum during an unprecedented visit.
UK assistance to Sudan will be £125 million this financial year. UK programmes are helping to build the stability and support the establishment of a new parliament so that the people of Sudan have proper democratic accountability. And earlier today I signed a memorandum of understanding with Dr. Hiba, and it provides £40 million to the Sudan Family Support Programme.
Raab also announced that Britain stands ready to provide £330 million as a bridging loan to clear Sudan's arrears to the African Development Bank during the first visit by a British Foreign Secretary to Sudan in more than 10 years. On the health front, South Africa is mourning the death of Minister Jackson Tambu, who passed away on Thursday from COVID-19, aged 62. Tambu was President Cyril Ramaphosa's advisor. He was also the public face of South Africa's fight against coronavirus, communicating the government's messages regarding the disease to his fellow citizens. The late minister in the presidency announced last week that he had tested positive for COVID-19 during a checkup for abdominal pain. Tribute messages from politicians from all across the political spectrum have been pouring in on social media since the presidency reported his passing. The World Health Organization plans to deliver 600 million COVID-19 vaccine doses in Africa by the end of the year, according to a statement made on Thursday by Dr. Moeti, Africa Director of the international organization.
Africa is facing a second wave in the COVID-19 pandemic with more than 3.3 million cases and 81,000 lives sadly lost. So the first epidemic peak in July was surpassed in December, and cases are continuing to accelerate at a significantly faster pace. I think we have a combination of factors, possibly fatigue with the measures, and then, of course, the festive season with its travel and gathering. In Africa, COVAX is targeting phased delivery of 600 million doses by the end of 2021, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more from Tabani about this. This is based on 2 doses per person and is aimed to cover the initial 20% of the population in African countries. An initial 30 million doses are expected, and I say this with some caveats, to start arriving in countries by March. These are intended to prioritize healthcare workers and other high priority groups, and then expanding to cover additional vulnerable groups.
It is, however, necessary to highlight that COVID-19 has been far less deadly on the African continent than in other parts of the world, including the West, where coronavirus has been wreaking havoc since the beginning of the pandemic. With a population of over 1.2 billion people, Africa has only registered just over 80,000 COVID-19 related deaths to date, compared to more than 2 million coronavirus-related fatalities recorded worldwide, thus questioning the need for pushing mass vaccination campaigns on the continent. In Tunisia, a group of mothers are accusing the authorities of arbitrarily arresting their kids in response to several nights of protests across the country, mostly carried out by young people who were demonstrating against poverty, unemployment, and the high cost of living.
The little children ran like this to the dead end. Here, there is a dead end. My son was here on the stairs, connecting to the internet. The door was ajar like that. Why did they push open the door and take my boy like that from inside? If they had found him outside, they would have had the right to take him. They would have had the right to take him if he had been outside. But from inside? Is this a land of justice? Sorry, but it's a country of injustice. Injustice I saw with my own eyes.
At least 1,000 people have been arrested during 6 consecutive nights of unrest, which started last week, according to human rights groups and non-governmental organizations.
Regarding the arrests, there's a fairly large number. We do not have exact figures from the ministry. What we have as figures, here now, according to the information we have, and what has been communicated to us, is that around 1,000 people have been arrested. 1,000 people who are scattered around the country, of which 30% are minors, children.
It seems from the information we are collecting that Law 5, the law which guarantees the rights of people in police custody, is completely flouted in the context of these arrests. There is a strategy in place which aims to dissuade protesters and young people from going out again in the streets. These very strong sentences, which seem to have been handed down for 2 years, etc. But obviously, we cannot decide without having the file. But what I can tell you is that fixing a general sentence for a group has no meaning in law.
Tunisian authorities announced earlier this week that they had arrested over 600 people and deployed troops to contain the unrest that erupted despite a nationwide coronavirus lockdown on the 14th of January, the day that also marked a decade since protesters forced former President Ben Ali's fall from power. Meanwhile, in Tunisia, people protested in daylight in the cities of Tunis and Sousse on Wednesday, calling for the release of hundreds of protesters arrested since last week during night unrest.
Today, it is well known that there are many arrests in working class neighborhoods all over Tunisia. There are many arrests, including a significant number of minors. So the Tunisian government has not respected the law allowing the Tunisian people to demonstrate, which dates back to the revolution 10 years ago. Certainly nothing justifies violence. The state sees its role as representing the movement of the people, while we young people see our role as militant and making the voice of the people heard. We have a revolution journey that we must complete and objectives to achieve.
The protesters also accused the government of inaction in the face of the country's socio-economic situation aggravated by the coronavirus pandemic. Senegal is no longer looking for its best pupil, Jariso, who has been missing for over 2 weeks in France, where she is studying. The 20-year-old prize-winning student, whose disappearance caused great concern in both countries, said that she was taking a little break to regain her senses in a letter that she wrote to her mentor, Senegalese government minister Serigne Mbaye Cham. The exchanges made public on Thursday evening are the first news from the young woman who has not been seen or heard from since the 4th of January. Jari apologized to those who worried about her and insisted that she was not running away or hiding. The excerpts from her letter were published on the minister's Twitter account with her consent and that of her family. Last but not least, French movie star Omar Si, who stars in the French series Lupin on Netflix, recounted on Tuesday his 48-hour visit to Senegal, his father's homeland, where he was received by President Macky Sall in the capital, Dakar.
It was a courteous visit of congratulations, recognition, and welcome. I was just talking about the road projects, the access to certain parts of the country, notably in going to Fouta, where my family is. I noted a certain progress and also about pollution. I came last year, and on the level of plastics, etc., it's extremely noticeable to the naked eye to see that the country is evolving in some form. That's what I have been able to do these past 48 hours. It's all still fresh. Yes, I am rather curious to observe, to meet young people in relation to my sector, which is the audiovisual sector. So I have quite a few young people who I am going to meet soon, and I'll see how I can be of help to these young people. The younger generation is very keen and already very informed, trained, inspired, and in fact there's not much need for it. Even I wonder if it's not me who's going to learn as a result.
Omar Si on Thursday was delighted to share on Twitter that the new series Lupin, created by British showrunner George Kay, is enjoying enormous success worldwide, becoming the second most watched show in the history of Netflix, less than 2 weeks after its release.
That's it for today. Thank you for watching Vox News.